Hey, how's everybody doing? So this is Christian, aka Doc, aka the founder of the institute, if you will. Today we're bringing you an art stream, as you can probably tell by the label up here that says Card Alters 101. Uh, yeah, I have some copyright-free music running in the background. Hopefully, you guys enjoy that. And yeah, I'll give you guys a little tour of the setup. So if we just scroll up a little bit on my webcam, you can see that's where I have all my paints. Well, a selection of them. We have the palette here, as you can see, has been heavily used, and we'll be going back to that. And some of the cards of interest that we're going to look at. So here's some examples of some Merfolk cards that I've been altering over the last few days. Oh, that's a nice little focus there, isn't it? So this is for Christian Aguilar, one of our teammates, and what do you call it? Probably one of the more prolific and, if you pardon the term, persistent Merfolk players I know. So I think he's basically trying to alter out most of his deck, which many of the key cards of which are here. Some of them I've already started, some of them need further progress, so these will be in various stages. If at any point music's too loud or you want it to be louder to drown out my voice, that's fine. Just please let me know. So yeah, without further ado, we'll get started. First, the name of the game is to identify what I've done and where I need to work. So clearly those guys are pretty much done. These guys are most definitely not. Actually, the glare affords you a nice opportunity to see where it's been altered and where it hasn't. But of course, that's not the focus, so let's bring it down. Much better. So, here's catchers. Now, in terms of music choice, the only reason I'm playing the music that I am right now is because I'm under the assumption that it's copyright free. So let's hope that, in fact, is the case. Alright. So we've got 2 more reachers. I believe there are 4 that he wanted me to alter, so those will be there. Harbinger of the Tides, definitely need that one. And some lands that I'm working on. This is Harbinger that I've already begun working on. Alright, and we have had some audio problems, so if anybody can't hear me for any reason, let me know. Oh, and here's a land altar that I was working on recently. Yeah, getting the focus to work sometimes is a bit tricky, but there we go. This is I believe, a Theros block swamp. Just needs a little bit of minor detail work, but really a lot of work went into making those rocks blend in with the stuff up here. Alright, so these we'll just put off to the side, we don't really need them. Alright, so let's continue our work on Harbinger of the Tides. So this is the original Harbinger of the Tides. And this is some of the work that I've already done on this one. So clearly one of the ideas is to have those tentacles pop out. Giggity. Make some of the color blending more natural. Let's just focus more readily. There you go. So you can already see where I'm talking about, where we want to get the colors to match a little better. We've sort of laid some foundation there. Having the tentacles really pop out. And continuing off the tentacles, maybe, for example, on the left side of the image there. So that's going to be the goal. So I'll switch the card preview here to actually have the card that we're working on. So that'll just take a moment. And there it is. Thank you to James Mendez for providing the custom software necessary to have those card previews over there. Okay. So probably the skill that has taken the most time to develop and which continues to prove challenging is the color matching. So especially when you have like very smooth gradients, that becomes especially challenging. And so one of the tools that you can use, I mean obviously apart from choosing the right colors, is choosing the right brush. So I do want it to be a little bit thicker than some of these finer detail brushes. For example, this is a 5/0, and compare that to like a 20/0, and you begin to appreciate how small those are. But for something like the edges here, or at least the base color for the tentacles, probably go a little bigger, or even substantially bigger, and then scale back. So something like this actually would probably work well. So this is a number 2, and you can compare the sizes here. And you can definitely see the difference compared to the 20/0. So we'll start with that one. Come back to these. Alright. That goes down. So next step is identifying the region we want to work on next. So the water is furthest back, so it's probably the easiest thing to do. The water, you'll see, has sort of like 2 general ideas: a darker greenish tint, and sort of where the water is being disturbed, more bright color, like the splash effect, if you will. So we should start setting up green tones that can reflect that. So, and this is another challenge. Whenever you see a color, like in this case that green right there, figuring out what colors are within that, because obviously that's not pure green, right? There's some hint of green, so we'll take a little bit of green, but it's obviously darker, so it has shades of other things. So here it has some shades of, like, I don't know, like a dark blue. So if we have something like that, we can add it in, which I have plenty of blue shades. So already you can see we're combining 2 colors there. And even though it's actually kind of hard to tell, I can guarantee you there's definitely some red there, some maroonish kind of tan behind there. So take some tan as well. And then another nice kind of a cheap trick is to have black available, because obviously that's just a very easy way of darkening without having any particular preference to like a bluish shade or a greenish shade. And if you need to add that in, you can always, well, add it in. Alright, so let's mix that around a little bit. And we get like kind of this kind of color. And let's try it. Not bad. Kind of like a spotting effect. You can see how that turns out. At some point I'll be able to better focus this. In fact, actually, why don't I just do that now? So Logitech has this nice little tool that allows you to manually focus the camera. Now, ideally, I'd have my SLR camera available. There we go. However, the setup for that I don't quite have ready for prime time. Alright, so let's see if we can manually adjust some of these things. There we go. Just took a couple of clicks in Logitech to figure that out. The focus is now on manual. There you go. So you can certainly see the color effect I was telling you about, especially right around here. So we're just trying to match that up. Clearly we need a little bit more tan and green to get that. As you can imagine, this takes considerable patience. That's why this is later re-released as a time lapse. Yeah, that matches up extremely nicely. And notice I'm not just touching up one area, I'm actually going back and touching up others where the water would be expected to be that sort of same color. In this sense, I don't really paint by sections, more by like common features. And then there you go. You can already see how that's matching a bit better. It does, this webcam does tend to have color correction, so I do apologize for that. But let's continue. Now this part of the water has a little bit more gray character to it. So to make gray from what we have right now, we probably add a little bit redder color, maybe some tan. See if we can match that gray. No, it needs more now blue. Like I said before, black is an easy way to cheating sort of like shading, so I think I'll do that actually. Also white. So I like to use a heavy body paint because you can especially water that down and you can really opacify colors or attenuate colors as needed. So right now, for example, again, the spot where I'm working on, oh, that's actually not the focus. Here's the focus. You can see right here. So that little spot right there, want to make it match it. So that's the gray area it was referring to. You can already see how we're getting pretty good blending with the green here, and we're using some of that over here to match some of the green here. So in actuality, there's a ton of colors. There's like a baby sky blue, there's the blue green. So whenever I create a color, if it matches somewhere else, I'll just naturally begin extending it. I already kind of did that with the clouds up here, as you can see. Finish it right here. Waiting to watch the world burn. These lyrics aren't exactly happy. Oh, you guys can't see here, but shout out to my beautiful girlfriend. Hi, Rafi. she's providing moral support and working on her own artistic endeavors. She's the real artist in the room. I'm just the imitator. At some point, we'll see if we can set her up with her own channel. So you guys can fangirl over her like I do. So I can adjust the gain a little, but the brightness. That's better. There we go, and have it spreading into the other areas like that. Create a much more natural gradient effect. And looking like that's something actually on the surface of the water. Just like that. Notice I'm laying it more on its side as opposed to straight on. And then just like brushing it off. And that's how you get that effect. See? So that side is coming along pretty well. Now, since I already have sort of a purplish tint, I can sort of begin to work on this part of the tentacle here, as well as painting in that part over there. So, you see here we got the purple. So that purple has a little bit more of a orange flavor to it, so I might need to get some yellow to accomplish that. For now, we'll just add a little bit of base color there. There we go. And thanks for joining us. If there's any issue with the audio, please let me know. Last stream we had some issue. So you can already start seeing tentacles are taking shape, but obviously more work needs to be done to even out that color, which we're getting to. So maybe a little bit of white to opacify that. I also have a kind of a bad habit, probably amongst artists. I don't wash my brush probably nearly as much as I probably should, but whatever. In that sense, I mix my colors on my brush, so it's something. So right now we're just looking for a different color. It looks red, but it's really more of an orange. Push of water. And continue on that spot. So that definitely helped. So over here has a deeper color. It matches a little better over there. You just let it dry and then then you can blend it in after. Here also it's a more subdued, maybe kind of like a deeper red. So I have plenty of those. In fact, you give me kind of like this like purplish thing to subdue the previous red. And these tentacles, actually, if you notice very carefully, the suction cups have water in them. So we'll probably come back and dab it a little bit. Some of the same colors as the water. Put a little bit more black paint to subdue this color. There you go. Now I can sort of create that shadow gradient on the underside of the tentacle. Especially on this one. And especially here. There we go. See how nicely that looks? And then we just continue to blend it. There you go. Before the glare was influencing the color a little bit, but there you can clearly see that the tentacle matches really nicely there. In here it's shaping up pretty nicely, and up here it'll need some work on the highlights and the suction cups, but it's getting there. You can also probably work on the water underneath it a little bit. I can begin to define our margins of where this tentacle ends. If you're seeing this angle, it'll probably be around here. So she'll mark that. That's a joint. And there. Even though we just fill it in with like some not very pigmented purple, just to remind ourselves where the border is and lay down like that base coat. The subdued one. Subdued is a word I'm going to use a lot here because, as you can see, these are not very strong colors that are on it. Not like a big bright neon anything, just very subdued maroons, greens. Compare that to something that's the opposite of subdued, which is something like this. Look at this really bright and potent blues. Both present their challenges. Some argue matching subdued colors is easier. Some argue matching these are easier because then you have to have a pigment that matches it. But there's the contrast. Alright, just a second. Alright, so let's come back to this. So, what I want to work on. Another thing too, especially if you have a tendency to get bored easily like I do. One of the things that keeps this interesting is that you just move from section to section. So now I'll probably try to match up the gray here just to fill in the remaining sky. and then probably add some green to add in the remaining ocean here. So still have some green from earlier that hasn't completely dried up, so let's just start there. Yeah, that works. And the fact that I already have sort of a base layer of black means that you can add light layer by light layer, light as a just very watered down, of paint until you get the color shade that you want. And notice how I haven't really been working on any fine details yet, which is why this number 2 brush continues to be preferable. This is all like background texture stuff that I'm working on, but I do need more paint. Try a slightly different shade of green. And if anybody's wondering, I'm using Liquitex brand of acrylic, water-based acrylic. I find that they have heavy enough bodies but lie down thin enough that it doesn't present playability issues for these cards. Keeping in mind that, of course, any given Magic card's playability, particularly those that have been altered, is subject to the discretion of the head judge of the respective event. This becomes especially relevant if you know ahead of time that your judge is a stickler for the rules. You certainly wouldn't want to spend a fortune on alters for cards you love, only to find out that you can't use them in the settings intended for which they were intended. And again, everybody acrylic. So this is a little bit of a green-tan combination with some heavy body white. You can't help but notice that there's purplish tones in the water. I wonder if because they're hinting that there's tentacles underneath that part of the water, or if it's just stylizing. You'll notice up here there's a patch missing green, so with that green I think contains a little bit more yellow pigment. Nevertheless, we'll try to fill that in now. Actually, I take it back. It has more of a blue pigment. So, if you notice there. So we'll try this green, which I think has a little bit more of that. And mix it in. And one color that I like a lot is primary blue, which is not primary blue. I don't know how else to describe it. But it's kind of like it's a very versatile blue because it's kind of blue-green when you need it to be, but it also works very well with when you mix it with like hotter colors. Because look at how beautifully, my god, that's really nice. I don't know if it comes across on the camera, but you can see that that green matches very well these. That's because of that primary blue. It just blends very well. So we'll smoothen out the bottom part of that tentacle here. We'll probably introduce maybe some darker shade here to indicate that bottom part of the wave. Here. Yeah, probably could use some blacker effect. So let's get black paint. Yeah, I applied, this is the poor man's technique. I apply the paint onto the brush and then onto the palette, because this allows me to limit how much paint I use. This is very expensive stuff. There we go. See how nice that effect looks? So now this is very clearly lower than that part, and you can tell it just from the color alone. Let's see where else we can use this color. Probably down here. That's getting dry. And that's another thing too. You want to use extremely light coats for the risk of playability, or compromising playability, that is. So, what do you call it? I use thin ones such that you'll often see it like drawing out and you having to get more paint. That's fine, because again, you don't want to add too thick layers. And here we're just adding some details for the layers. Probably one of the better ways to add details is to have sort of the lighter color that you want to be like the one on top, and have that actually be existing on the bottom, and then that way you can just sort of add the dark colors and they'll fill in the circles here. It's a counterintuitive, but it really works. So let me demonstrate. So we'll take some green and blue here, and we'll have the lighter color. And this lighter color, you'll see we'll do this. That. You could even continue it down here. Because why not? We're going to give that a second to dry. And meanwhile, we got this. We could demonstrate the opposite, which is where you have the darker color on top and draw the details over it. So as you can see, I use multiple different techniques on the same painting. In fact, multiple times that's the right way to do it. So whatever works is the right way. And often, my motivation for most of my techniques is to save money and save paint. So here we'll exaggerate that effect a little bit with some of this white. And see how, while I was letting the other thing dry, we're able to do all these other things, and now you're getting to appreciate those details taking effect. Especially places like there. The little subtle lighter color around the tentacle really convinces you that it's there in the water, and that it's continuous with like where it's going into the water there. So, taking my own advice, let's do that effect elsewhere, like over here, where it's on those surfaces of water. I like that. We're getting to the point where the detailed brushes may actually help more, but I usually like to use a brush as much as possible, and only when I need to switch out, and that's more of a time saving kind of thing. Because going back and forth between brushes and setting paint on the brushes again, it takes time. So what I was saying earlier, you can use the light color to create the details on top, and it takes more time and effort. That's actually what I'm doing right now. And also, different sides of the brush have at this point acquired different amounts of paint in different shades. And instead of having that be a weakness, I applied that as a tool, and now look at those wave details. So you can see that these start to become similar to like what's over here. And that was literally just me dicking around for the last like couple minutes. But even then, I actually find that more tedious than not. So now I'm gonna clean my brush for the first time in like forever. And demonstrate what I said earlier about just adding some of the drops of darker colors to achieve the same effect, but sort of in the opposite way. So let's get some green, a darker shade. Just dry paint chips. Alright. Set it here. Get some of the green, some black. This one could be on the water side because you're literally going to make little circles. So then, just do it like kind of like this. Like this. A little too dark. With water in it. So like this. Still too dark. Actually, I have to have some white. But then that's too much color. Okay. And so as you add these darker dots, these white highlights are kind of like as if you had drawn them yourself. But they're really just the area surrounding sort of like the dark colored dots. So you can kind of see how that effect works. It's more subdued than those details up here, but you can still see sort of the hint of perturbations in the water, whereas here they're much more obvious. So yeah, I guess you can also use it depending on where you want that effect to exist. And then again, just as a cheap way to save time, you want to just make sure that the bottom parts of your altar, if there isn't a lot of detail hinted in the picture, you can sort of just taper off, gradient down to like a dark color, like even a black. And then if you want later, you can add like a tentacle down here too, or some other like effect popping out, even violating the borders of the frame. I'm not afraid to use my fingernail to like smooth out things like this. It's just much easier and cheaper than taking time to lay down tape. Keeping in mind that if you do lay down tape, this will be much cleaner. And also keeping in mind, if you decide not to, that you can only scratch it so many times before you actually begin taking off some of the superficial layers, because there's coatings on the card. And then you won't be able to do any more of that quote-unquote scratch removal without taking out without actually damaging the card. Not that you're not damaging it, not painting, but you know what I mean. Alright, so just a couple quick adjustments to the string. One moment. Excellent. So our audio is going good. We still got an audience member. Thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, we'll continue. And so since I'm already sort of filling in the color there in the bottom part of the image, I might as well do that for the other side. Right. I'm going to go back to manual focus. And set it to right about here. Yeah, that works. Yeah, we were filling in the water color, or the color of the water on the bottom. Thank you for whoever just joined us. I saw we got another viewer. So we're just going over the Harbor into the Tide right now. The color that I have on my brush is this greenish color to match the water. So I'm just creating sort of a gradient of water. So from up here to below, letting it become darker the further down on the card we go. And keep in mind, if it does look watered down and not very paint heavy, that's by design. Again, you want to keep the thickness as small as possible. And then the color combination I have down here is a mix of white pigment, or rather white heavy body paint, black regular body paint, and this one green, what's it called? Phthalocyanine green. Say that 5 times fast. Phthalocyanine green. But the combination really is convincing. You can notice it does look exactly like the greens that are elsewhere in this card.
I got trapped in your eyes the moment you looked at me from across the room. Those eyes kept following me. Something popped in my brain. No, baby, only you.
One can imagine using this exact technique that I'm using right now to paint like a black border, or a white border for that matter, on a card. But it's not the most effective or efficient, just because it takes thin layers and a lot of them, and then you have to come back, water down, and etc. So let's see where we are compared to the original, which I have right here. So again, in terms of progress, we've made quite a bit. It's hard to appreciate it, so it's nice to come back and tell. So what have we done? So you can see here at the border, extending out the tentacle is fine. The sky has been extended all the way right here, creating this sort of bottom part of the wave, or part of the wave. We did that more with shades of green color as opposed to adding in white. Down here we extended out this effect. We extended out the tentacle and did splashes in the water by adding a little bit of white, lighting it up so it's really convincing that it's going into the water. On the opposite side, we've extended this tentacle out, coming outside of where the frame used to be. We've used 2 different techniques to lay down some details in terms of the water extension coming out. And as you can see here, it's more subtle, but we're laying down just a color gradient that goes all the way to the bottom, so that really we get rid of that border. And because this card sort of has a continuing effect, and it's a water setting, kind of like as if you were to have grass lines or whatever else, you can have it fade to a darker and darker version of the color, to the point that you can literally just have it be like black with a tiniest little hint of green down here. So that's what I'm doing right now, just finishing that off. And as I was saying earlier, you'll notice that it may jump back and forth between one thing and another, or one area or another, and that's often dictated by just what paint I have that's not dry. And that instead of going by like sections, like I'll do this, then this, rather I go by common features. So if I have sort of green and dark color on my brush, then I'll just try to work on all the areas that have that. In this case, this altar really is, as you've probably figured out, more of an extension. And it's again to sort of fit the spirit of keeping the original card and not making too many changes, because I'm going to do this to all of the ones that are in the deck. So if you're making like huge changes, like putting a whole new face on the character, that's obviously much more involved work. But if you're just going to be extending out, it's just easier to be more consistent. And you're also noticing that I'm doing one at a time. You can do whatever you want. That's just how I've sort of begun doing it now. Now, I was getting some more black paint too. Again, I use Liquitex water-based acrylics. And again, I load the paint directly onto the brush instead of the canvas, which is more sort of customary, because it saves paint. So, as I've continually mentioned, most of my techniques are motivated by saving matter. Alright, so we come back to this now. And we're just finishing the bottom part out. But yeah, if I can do more than one at the same time, I'll try. But it doesn't always work out being more efficient. I'd almost rather finish one in one evening, one sitting, if you will, and then save the other one for a completely different evening. Otherwise, I kind of feel like an assembly line, which assembly lines are much more efficient, but I'm hardly a machine. And again, as I was saying, you can use your fingernail to scratch off a little bit. Oh, and there's my lovely girlfriend. Hey, what are you up to? Hey, show some of your work. Come on. Alright guys, we have a special guest. This is my girlfriend. She's actually in art school. That's supposed to be me who just does this because, like, you know, shits and giggles. That's her. And show us some of your stuff.
So recently I was just messing around, practicing some old ink.
Alright, so let's change that focus to auto. There it is. Ooh.
Just some rough ink to practice, and a lot of touch with. So lately I'm a little out of touch with the ink media. So I was just practicing. I found like one of those Inktober checklists and went through each of them, just drew it all on the page. So yeah, just goofing off with that. I think here I was messing around with landscaping. And, here I was.
Everybody will be happy to know that we are working. Oh, I love that.
Here I was testing out like a D&D character design. So
that's beautiful. I haven't seen this one.
Thank you.
So the idea being that we are commissioning her to create a background for our channel, so that we don't have to use copyrighted images or very poor quality copyright-free images. So this is one potential landscape that we can have sort of as the frame. You see there's a frame of a thing represent. So that way the frame could be filling that specific channel, kind of inspired otherwise.
It's not even done yet.
And then the night pretty much is too. I can see where you're working on her.
Yeah.
Oh wow, this is like.
Oh yeah, it's a horse in a snowstorm, a white horse in a snowstorm.
Yes.
I think this was something I was working on. Another D&D character. He's not quite finished either. So just sort of tiefling unicorn, I suppose, for all you D&D players out there.
For people joining us, my girlfriend is just showing us a little bit of her. We're taking a quick break. I'm working on a Merfolk deck. You can see some of the altars in here, but we're just taking a quick break to see some of the stuff she's done. And then she's really big into D&D, as opposed to Magic, but nevertheless, you can see here just how nicely this is done. I see the details here are supposed to.
There is more experimenting with different color variations. I wasn't quite sure what to make his sashes. Still not quite sure about this area, but I will figure it out eventually.
Oh wow!
So that was also the same thing, a comic that I did just for fun based on our D&D campaign.
This is really good. I'm understanding that.
We were doing a logo design for one of my good friends, Gentleman Savage. So
what happens if you piss off the keto mask? Okay. Oh yeah, for the logo you were designing for the store, right?
I was designing a game store logo, so I kind of went with this mage hat sort of DM look. So it's always playful, eh?
Yeah, it's almost like Lord Beerus.
Here's another D&D inspired piece. So, a scene from our campaign. Very dramatic climax we had there.
Watercolor and then white gel?
Yeah, gel pen for the white details. So, but all this is water. I usually work consistently in watercolor. It's my favorite media, I'd say. It's a.
I hadn't seen this one either.
That was a tribute to.
Why don't you show me this?
You never ask. Well, you know what I mean.
I know. Oh, wow.
So this is like a character in our campaign, one of my characters and my good friend, just a tribute to the character's backstory. So some of the tragic moments in his backstory and in the campaign, I'd say.
It's like watercolors.
Yep. Can't remember the name of them though.
Man, this could be like that. You can even do a magic card. Unfortunately, watercolors are not what a magic card. But there's a lot of cards that give you like a lotus petal or like any like pro mox. There's a lot of cards in magic. This kind of art is this is magic.
Just a quick doodle. Another quick D&D sketch for a figure. Character design. Yeah, I usually start off in pencil and sometimes I'll go in either with ink or watercolor. So here's like a quick concept design for one of my finals in illustration for my class.
Hey, you are an art school.
So it was like a 4-piece series. So here's another
I
piece.
remember seeing the lighting was dramatic and super good. I remember that was one of the highlights.
And like the other 2 out of the 4 painting series for that final. So it was 4 different seasons, 4 different times a day, 4 weather climates, I believe, and just some ideation here.
Well, I really admire your work.
Thank you.
For doing that. And for other reasons. So, thank you, my love.
No problem.
All right. I'll take that.
Yes. I have that.
Thank you much. And that was a nice little break, wasn't it, ladies and gentlemen? All right, so let's continue. I really want to get this Harbinger done tonight. So where are we? We're filling in the color of the water, which seems to be pretty much done, except for this area where we need to really try to cover up the name of the artist, original artist from Wild. Let's get some more water. Thank you, love, for showing us your work. Are you hungry or anything? Yeah, just making sure. And again, for those of you watching, we're just creating that water gradient down here. Probably add some details here, making them coarser and coarser as we move down. Yeah, this music's catchy. There you go. Yeah, I like that better. See, we're just working on some of the details there at the edge, make the waves more convincing. Great. So now we just have the sky and the tentacles details, and we'll be done. So, and then another challenge is not touching the parts where the paint is wet. Yeah. Yeah, fail.
The type of folk we used to be and the simple souls we used to see, Do you remember?
Turn that off.
A fallen man with no escape.
So then we want like a grayish color with hints of orange and yeah, tan. So let's go directly for those colors. So we'll use cadmium red, which is really more of a very orange color. Again, it's hard to appreciate that on camera because a lot of the colors are distorted. Alright, so we'll lay that down here. Then we said tan, so let's get some of that. And again, if you look there, you'll say, you know, Doc, you're crazy. There's, you know, tan or orange there. Well, there is, but we're just talking about the hints. In fact, there's also like obviously some purple and stuff. And we're looking at the top right here. And hints of green too. So we'll do green, but like a darker shade. This one should be fine. The phallocyanine green. And then finally black, which I already have on the canvas. So let's get a little mix of those things. Probably more black, but let's check. Well, that's definitely too much green. In fact, actually, purple will not be a bad idea here. Instead of getting more black paint, I think purple would create that color just as easy. Let's try. No. I think it's going to be Primary Blue to the rescue. I love the color so much. You'll have heard me earlier in the stream extol the virtues of it. There it is, to the rescue. And we'll get a little bit of white to match that.
Like an old dad. Oh yes, she broke up in my old sweats. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Oh yes, might just blow a whole check. Oh yes, run up like an old dad. Oh yes, she broke up in my old sweats. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Whoa, wake up every morning, thank God for another day.
Yeah, so we definitely need more blue, purplish colors there. So let's just clean it. Yeah, it's better. I really hope these songs are copyright free because they sound too good to be copyright free. No tomorrow, like there's no tomorrow. No tomorrow, like there's no tomorrow. Apparently we're getting bitches like there's no tomorrow. Song lyric, not me.
I bought a new house, right? I bought a new ring. check, I'm feeling so cool, man. Cool. All of these rappers wishing they me, but they need school, man. I love a white girl, she drive me so crazy. Smoking on all this weed, it got me so lazy. Always knew that I'd be a star, just like a Mercedes. All of these whips in my front yard, but I'm like fuck slavery. Living my life today, hating on me better pray. Known for selling the yay, the work, day after day after day. Go, call me a case, beat the charge, now I'm back in the street. Jury lit, now I'm froze, just like a package of meat. No tomorrow like there's no tomorrow. No tomorrow like there's no tomorrow. We getting lit just like there's no tomorrow.
We get lit just like there's no tomorrow. Certainly.
No tomorrow like there's no tomorrow. We getting lit just like there's no tomorrow. No tomorrow like there's no tomorrow.
Alright, so now this white, or rather the lighter shades, will be to represent the clouds in the sky. Like here. There we go. Actually, it needs more yellow? Yeah, yellow. So the pink. And lighter, apparently. Don't like that. Let's see what other colors can salvage it. Now, of course, the easy, cheap solution would be just to override the existing colors. But I'm gonna try working with what they've created. It's more of a challenge. Yeah, there we go. See that? Oh, I'm off camera. There we go. Zoom here.
Thank God that the brothers on the rise now. Endless celebrations all in my house. Levitating now, I'm super duper fly now. London boy, but DC where I reside now. Put the time in while you always yelling time out. And for quit it, cause I know I'm coming with it. You were sitting, you were wishing I was handling my business. Now I got the ball like Harry Potter playing Quidditch. And my business so humongous, you would think that happens in there. Damn man, I'm all that, yeah, I'm all that. Working for that whip, yeah, that what you call that. I'ma blow up in the summer, have him yelling fall back. And I've always been ahead like an effing ball cap. Man, I came in the game like, whoa. Got a couple chains on me cause I like gold. They told me I'm the best and I told them I know. Cause when I'm in your town, every ticket I sold. Yeah, they saying I'm the man. Facts, bro. Lot of haters, tell me where they at though. I'm the new pop, all I do is rap though. Want me on your song, throw a couple stacks, yo. Everybody wanna do the same thing. That's why we ain't on the same page. Do my own thing, and I maintain. Flow like water, so I'm going
See
mainstream.
there?
I'm going mainstream. Flow like
Now we
water, so
just
I'm going
need to
mainstream.
finish it above and around the mana symbols, and I think it's done with the sky. With the sky, not this sky.
Mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yeah. I'm going mainstream. Damn. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream.
There you see. So do that a bit, so do it here a bit, and that's your sky. I'm pretty happy with that. Again, it's not the highlight of the image, and that's, I think, as good as you're gonna get. Yeah, so we just need a little more tentacle details and tentacle details, diction, and then we'll be done. just 1 second.
Yeah, I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna send this picture to my good friend in our group chat, letting them know it's almost done. Alright, so let's continue. Now, the things that are remaining are the tentacle up here and this one, and yeah, that's it. So now, finally, I'll switch to the detail brush. Alright, so as far as which is a detail brush, earlier we introduced it. In general, you're going to go with the small sizes. I mean, that goes without saying, right? I mean, details are small. So, here are tools. I was using this one earlier, the 20/0, so I think that'll be fine. Now, just to compare, here are the relative sizes of what I was using with what I will now be using. And you can see there's a considerable difference. The one above is a 2 size brush, the one below, again, 20/0. So we'll try that. Yeah, so this takes a card altered and realizes that it's not as easy as it seems. So we want to do these highlights on the tentacles. Probably the best way to do that, of course, with a detail brush, but so like, for example, take a look. I go back to manual focus. So you'll notice that these tentacles have water in them. So drawing them here would probably just be easiest if I take some like green color and paint a few circles. Here we just have to add the details. Probably a single shade can finish that out. And I think we're done with that one, to be honest. So just 2 more little areas to work on. So let's just start off with the top tentacle, since I think it'll require less work. Refocus for around here. Good. And let's get the paint I think I need. So it's like a reddish purple color, so we could try quinacridone, apparently quinacridone, whatever, this thing. So we'll take some of that. That may actually be too bright, but we'll find out. Yeah, definitely too bright. I was saying earlier, this is a very subdued painting. I mean, it's a beautiful color. It's just kind of feel bad that I have to subdue it. So how do you do that? Just mix it with some black paint. Then you get something like this. There you go. Much better. Apparently this camera has a zoom option that I was not aware of, so now I am. Yeah, we need to trace the upper end of it with some white. There we go. That's nice. And then some circles. This one's going to be really tough. So rather than drawing a circle, maybe easier to... Oh, rather than drawing like a circle with that's empty in the middle, that requires movements that are very subtle, maybe easier to draw a solid circle and then later dab with the tiniest little drop of darker paint in the middle. But no, I think I could still do the circles that are empty in the middle. Small fact, I did used to be a surgeon before I switched to neurology. So yeah, the doc nickname I have isn't just decorative. So let's see if those skills are still present. That's just too big, but it does what it needs to do. It's just too big. But it's easy actually, because what you do is clean off the brush, get some more of that subdued purple we created, and just gloss over it like this. Make it smaller. Here we go. There you go. See? And that suction cup no longer is too distracting. So finally, we have the ones down here. So those are filled with water, which has hints of green, so let's grab that. Yeah, that works. It's also since these are closer to us, we can make them bigger, which means we don't need to make as many. now I make a slightly lighter version of this color. There we go. Again, this song is so good. I'm concerned it's not actually copyright free, but we'll see. There we go. So now we'll draw the suction cup around it, which is basically dark purple, and we'll be done. I think that's about as much as my patience will deal with tonight. But I think that's all we need. So let's look at what I just did. These suction cups on the bottom left, it's kind of hard to get them right because you'll notice that the colors here are all over the place, right? You have a little bit of hints of yellow in the middle, the purple outline, which the purple outline I was able to get, but color matching those is harder than I thought because it's not really yellow, even though it kind of looks like that on the stream. So figuring exactly what color that is it's not easy. So there's a couple of ways to address that issue, right? So one is just go back and change those to match the color that yours look like, which is, I guess, kind of cheating, but why not? You're altering it, right? The second thing you could do is just to try to add the tiniest thin layer of like a yellow-white mixture to yours, if you're convinced that yellow and white are the colors that yours is lacking. Which I'm not convinced, but whatever, I'm feeling cavalier. So, just grabbing a little bit of yellow and white from off camera. We're going to try adding that in. Alright. If you notice that I don't speak when I'm doing this, it's because I'm literally holding my breath, because breathing or talking shakes my brush too much. So here I did a sort of combined solution where I added a little bit more of the yellow that I thought was there and put some on the existing tentacles already. And sure, let's just add that. Maybe some more of the magenta. I have extra to spare here. Let's try that. Yeah, that works. Actually, that did it completely. See? Yeah, and they're supposed to be darker because they're off camera, or they're like, not off camera, but like they're coming back for it this way, and things get darker, like a pseudo vignetting. So, yeah, I'm happy with this. The only last thing to touch upon, which is a really, really minor thing, but in case you haven't noticed, I'm quite a stickler for detail. Just over here, blending better that little strip of blue that I was lazy with the other day. So, I'll start with my favorite blue, this primary blue from Liquitex. Mixing some green, and I think we'll be able to fix it that way. So let's do that. And maybe a hint of black, maybe some white for opacification. Alright, so those. What does this color look like? Oh, that's a very strong one. So yeah, we definitely need to add some white to opacify it, and then some black to subdue it. There we go. Add back a little blue. How's that look? Not too dark. And I'll bring it up closer to the camera in just a second. In desperation to match, I'll try a little bit of a lighter shade of blue. Why not? As you can see, color matching is probably the most challenging aspect of Altern. Alright, let's try that. Closer. There you go. Can turn into like a gradient thing. Perfect. Yeah, basically this is just smoothing out what I had. Smoothing out, I guess is the right word. What I had before there. I had there before. Except until some dried up yellow paint on my brush fell on there. That's why we clean our brush, people. However, I have more here. Try that again. Those are stubborn little flecks of paint. The problem with those flecks of paint is that they really dug themselves in. So it's just gonna be easier to paint over them. There we go. Yep. Yeah, it looks like that equally solves the issue. But since I am a stickler for detail to a fault, I'm gonna continue it down this way. Something like that. Honestly, when that dries, it's not going to make any little bit of difference. So, yep, we are done with the Harbinger of the Tides altar. Dang it, I wish I were such a stickler for this. Yeah, okay, fine, we're done. You got to learn when to call quits. So, again, let's compare before and after. So on the left, of course, you see the extension of the tentacle, the addition of the sky, well, really the extension of both tentacles, so the progress that was made there, and we just used the water gradient, making it darker as you go down. On the right side, you see clearly that we extended out the tentacle, that we extended up the sky, and added details with two different techniques to the water there and there. And of course, that darkening gradient. And the sky was just continuing what was up down here to go further up. The other challenge, unique challenge when altering, is that pigments are not uniform across different printings. So as you can see, the one on the right, like you have to be able to call these things out. So the one on the right is actually more of a green hue than the one on the left. So this significantly affects your paint, and thus is one of the other reasons why you don't alter more than one at once. Well, at least what I don't do that. At least most of the time, because then there's no point, because you have to basically mix up a whole new batch of paints for the other one. Other examples of ones that I've done recently, we've got the Merfolk. So this is the original, obviously, well, the one that doesn't have paint on it. And again, you can kind of see the commission was for extensions, so again, you can see naturally where the extension occurred. A lot of these movement lines and some of these cards make it sort of kind of obvious where to extend it out, but you can add in details, like I added that darkening to sort of give it an additional layer of sort of depth, and it exaggerates that sort of like pushing out motion compared to like the original one. And then the rest of the details are just sort of textural alterations. A lot of spotting with bigger brushes, relatively bigger. And here, just I imagine this is some kind of sandbar, and just extend that out. And then again with the lines, it's relatively easy, just continue along where they were before. Then the other ones that I've been working on are the curse catchers. So curse catcher Again, it's deceptively simple. Uh, Especially this little corner right here. I It's really hard to know what the best way to tackle it is. Some of them I went back and sort of painted over the original swirls, and others I tried harder to continue with the original, and others I kept the original and added more. So these are all slightly different, just because it's really hard to match these paints, and then even within the same set, sometimes different, I guess, print runs or whatever make it harder to match the colors. And then on the left, that's sand, or like a sandbar kind of, obviously. So on this one's where I sort of began to interpret it. And then I'm probably gonna draw like another branch or something down here with the colors of the of this light reflecting off of it. So that's that. I've been working on these for a very long time because, like I said, they look like they're easy to alter, but I came to find out they're not. It actually took a lot more time than I ever planned to spend on these guys. So in terms of setting up for what I'll do next time, I still have to finish the work on the curse catchers. The Harbinger one's done. Still need to do the others. And then I have 2 Marrow Rejuries to go. So still a while to go on this thing. I mean, obviously some are done, but in terms of just getting everyone done, there's still a bit to go. But I'm working on it. Again, there slowly. And clearly have the right colors and paints to do so. Again, liquid text equipment. You can see sort of there my brushes, the palette rather, and the paints. So that's pretty much it. Thanks everybody for joining. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll probably chop it up into like a time lapse thing for YouTube, and I'll probably do more streams like this. Paisano, hey, what's up, man? El Yeti. But yeah, do you have a question before I go? ¿Tienes algo amigo? Ah, thanks, brother. No, hombre, gracias. Como todo esto empezó como un hobby porque lo que pasa es que lo que pasa, yo desde un principio me gustaban los alters. Lo que pasa es que no quería yo pagar lo que cobraban. Entonces pasa como un año más haciendo alters, pero como de baja calidad, ¿verdad? Nada más para experimentar. Y ahora ya, pues hasta me han contratado, ¿verdad? Esta es una comisión de Christian Aguilar. So Christian Aguilar is the one who commissioned these from me. So yeah, you can see here sort of like I've come a long way. Teresa, oh yeah, Nielsen, I think Teresa Nielsen. Yeah, you can see this one. Yeah, no, most of the alters that I do are extensions, just because like, what do you call it? For the most part, the content of the cards, I mean, it's iconic. I like it. Usually, I alter cards from artists that I enjoy. So you just kind of like want to enhance it, spread it out, make it more impactful. So that's what I've done with these guys. So those are the kinds of alters I prefer. I mean, I've done a million, actually. In fact, before I sign off, let me grab a small binder of them. One second. Hello, are you okay? Oh, I just need to hear from you. Yeah, so I just had these available, so I figured one last thing. So here's some other altars. So this is actually one of those unglued lands, and I actually painted it when it was cheap enough for me to think, if I ruin it, no big deal. So I think I got it for like $4. But yeah, this is one of the first ones that I did. Because I really, really like these guys. Because yeah, they were really the first full arts, at least the ones that I encountered. Now, here, speaking of which, you have a brainstorm that I'm actually trying to reproduce. It's like 5 inches by 7 inches. So, except you'll notice right away, I chose less defined cheek architecture, personal aesthetic preference. Also makes her look younger. Yes, thanks, my friend. Yeah, this one took quite a while, and obviously, you can see it's gonna take longer. I did a pencil sketch first, and then I'm painting over it. So there's a lot of details in the skit to try to make that look realistic. So that is something else that I'm working on. And then again, going back to the unglued lands, some other examples. At one point, actually, my deck was mostly all unglued lands. Let's change the focus. There you go. So you have the mountain there. Another example of an island that I altered from the same era. Oh yeah. So these are actually Van Gogh paintings that I reproduced. This is a detail of a larger one. This is especially a small detail of a much larger one, but you can definitely see the style. It's extremely hard to reproduce that and yet create a perfectly flat card, because Vincent van Gogh's paintings stick out like an inch above the canvas. So recreating that on a magic card is not easy. Some of mine are just sort of trying to create natural looking landscape extensions. Clearly I like water. Speaking of which, actually here's a good before and after. So you can see here, yeah, thick strokes, exactly. That's what she said. So you can see here, this is before I added details, and this is after details were added. And even then, this is before I was really good at them, but you can see the difference that it makes. We saw those. One thing that I've started doing is trying to edit old school lands in like that old school style. So that's one way of doing it here. These are some of my early altars. And then again, 2 earlier altars. This one's early too. So I really like this one because, not that I ever want to deceive another player, but I kind of like cards that look like other things. So this plains really looks a lot like a forest. So, and you can see they put a lot of work into the details of the grass and really making it look like it's coming out of the original art, such that you can't tell where my art begins and the original art ends. Good example being this thing here. So that took a while. Likewise with the grass thing. That's just, this one didn't take too long. Here's some fun ones. I'm not very good at drawing flowers, as you can tell. I'm definitely much better at working on this stuff up here. Oh yeah, I altered David's entire snow-covered islands, and they're blue, so I naturally extended out the art, and so they look like snow-covered mountains. I don't know what I said, but I edited his snow-covered mountains, but they look blue. I mean, if you've ever seen a snow-covered mountain, it looks blue. In fact, I wonder if I can pull that up, if you just give me a second, because why not? There you go. Yeah, so you can see it there on the screen. So I just extended it out the blue color. So it's a very blue land, but in fact it is not a mountain. Sorry, it is not an island, it is a mountain. But whatever. Ran into issues with that with this altar. This is a swamp, but if I play with unhinged lands, for the most part, so the unhinged plains actually has this sort of same color palette, so it threw off a couple of opponents. So I'm not using it as much anymore, but obviously that's why it's in here. Let's see what else I got. I really like Tempest Islands. For some reason, they're just very, I mean, tempestuous, for lack of a better word. It just looks like there's a storm happening. This one kind of fits with that theme. Obviously, it's not from that set. It's much later. Variations on the theme, sort of storm kind of setting. Where was I? Oh yeah, more of that sort of cup island for teacup. Yeah, exactly. This one was popular for a while, so I just altered a bunch of them. And then here's one solution that I've come up with. Well, I didn't come up with it, but I've implemented for white bordered lands. This one was particularly easy to do, but again, deceptive, because matching this gradient out here was not easy. Gradients are never easy. And here's another white bordered land. So two different solutions to the same problem. Again, remember I was saying I'm working on old school altars. So there's an old school mountain that I salvaged. This was a revised mountain that was pretty beat up. This is probably one of my best altars, I think, because the negate, if you see it in person, I actually took great care to make sure it was very flat and the details are nice and crisp. I should alter the black-red painland with the top left full in the pond. I think actually I have, because I did that at one point with a black-red painland, Sulphur Springs, if I'm not mistaken, but I forget. I think I did the 6th edition one. Thanks. Yeah. I put a lot of effort into this one. Also trying to match the hieroglyphs. I hear that. I promise, it's not easy. Here's a couple of other fun ones. So I play a lot of blue, so I mostly alter the islands. Here I kept John Avon's signature and sort of just worked around it, created the sort of, kept the blue-green sort of scheme. And obviously this is a very iconic Mark Poole Island, old school. Like I was saying, I'm working on a lot of the old school altars. A lot of the old school altars. And I was able to find, as you can see here, I have a lot of paints. But paints that had a strong enough pigment to really preserve the original look of this island. So that's this one. Oh yeah, I really like this island. Speaking of Tempest, I think it's Tempest. Or Mirage. Actually, I'm not quite certain anymore. Anyway, whatever set it is, I like it a lot because you can see in the background, these waves are pretty thick, so you can kind of choose to... Here I was experimenting with different ways of demonstrating, like violent waves and different shades of blue-green, and also different skies. Here's... actually, if you go to my channel, like on YouTube, you can actually see me altering that in like a time-lapse. Here's another way of interpreting the waves, much more uniform, different kinds of strokes. So these are really experiments on techniques. Other cards that don't look like what they are, Mountain. So I like this one for a lot of different reasons. Number one, it was one of my first experiments in like creating kind of like this fog kind of look that's sort of covering up that mountain, and that took a lot of work. I don't know if you can appreciate that, but it took a lot of work. And blending the skies, I told you already, blending is never easy. And then creating sort of the vegetation with details on these mountains wasn't easy either. So this one took a lot of effort. And also the colors of the University of Miami, where I actually am a professor at the medical school. So I kept that. In fact, here's a really nice example of before and after. So earlier I showed this planes. Well, it began something like this. And then here's an example of this version where it kept this in front. Here's going to play around putting that in the back, but never had a chance to finish it. And again, I was coming up with, well, trying to implement different solutions for white bordered cards here too. And here's one of my favorite planes. Because it definitely, obviously it's the color palette of a planes, this yellow. And then it really gives you a chance to work on the texture for clouds. So that texturing, as you can see, very detailed, took a lot of work, but it's very satisfying to see in the end. Like there, maybe that angle, you can appreciate the subtle variations there to create the convincing cloud depth. Another one of my favorite islands, again from that, I forget if it was Tempest, I think it's Tempest, but from that set. So once more, you can see the blending up here, but the challenge, or the fun part, if you will, is interpreting the waves differently. You can see here, this isn't really black. It's like a very deep green, and with some hints of yellow. So that's one interpretation. Got a couple more here, with like one big wave coming here, and then just sort of like more diffuse kind of waves there. So yeah, this one with the lightning bolt reaching back around, which one with it coming forward. So subtle differences. This wave coming down, this one coming up. Yeah, so this is very much like the unhinged planes. I think this is from one of those Dragons or Cons sets. This is not easy. This one was really, really involved, because you can see there's multiple layers of like paint that you have to set down, and you have to apply the black brush strokes in a certain way to make it look like it's pieces of grass breaking through like a flooded plain. So yeah, this one took a long time, and again, the blending actually looks much better in person, but the webcam is sort of highlighting the orange. But yeah, that blending took a while. I really like these ones too, these mountains, but they're very challenging to alter. And one of the reasons they're challenging to alter is because, again, you can imagine just from looking at it, it involves a lot of blending, and that just takes so very, very long. Another variation on the theme, ways of trying to quote-unquote fix the white border. And this is a 5th edition land, so you can see the detail I put into the flowers and making sure that we color matched and shading and etc. So again, a John Avon land. These are kind of some of the early things I did because they're easy. Let's be honest. This is pretty easy to extend out. The colors are just continue them up. Same thing here. So these are like good cards to begin altering with. This is a kind of early one, but this was a bit more challenging, so I only ever really altered one. And again, this fog effect is not easy, but I was able to accomplish it with basically, well, the way you do it is you just get like maybe a thicker brush like this, get some white paint, let it dry a bit, and then just instead of coming onto the paint like this, you come at it from the side kind of like that. But anyway, it's much more nuanced than that, because that's not just white, right? You can see here this fog's a different color than this one, this cloud is a different color than this one, and there's different opacities. So again, deceptive as to how complicated that one is. Here's another John Avon land. I forget what edition it's from, if it's 5th or Mirage or something, but I really like that deep red and the contrast. Oh yeah, that Mandalik is another altar that I did just kind of casually and really enjoyed it. So if you look at the original, it's definitely done in watercolor, but you can't really do watercolor on magic cards. So the trick was to try to create kind of like a fog machine effect, that using like a watercolor look without watercolors. At some point, I'm gonna alter that. Just haven't gotten around to it. Here you can see the clear 6th edition blah, 6th edition expansion symbol. There you go. To indicate this is a white bordered card. And you can see here the effort I took to do a convincing grass effect. And of course, continuing with the appropriate colors there. Oh, and clearly I like old school lands. Here you can see a swamp. This is an Ice Age swamp. I actually kept the mana symbol there. You can see it. And again, these are deceptive because this isn't just black and white. If you pay careful attention, you will actually notice that it is yellow and sort of a hot black and white. Like for those of you that do photography, if you whenever you do black and white photography, you can add kind of like a hue, like a cool or like a warm, and you'll notice like pictures from like the 20s or 30s. They actually have like a warm hue to them. This one does too. So if you just try doing this in black and white, it won't really pan out. So if you look carefully, this one does have like a yellowish tint to it, especially compared to some parts where I was a little less careful with making sure it matched the yellow tint. But this is an older altar as well. And yeah, you can see here the original tree and making sure, because clearly it's coming up to above where the cutoff would be. Now, this swamp is, I think, the only original Zendikar of this type swamp that I made, because it's not easy. It took a lot of effort because, number one, if you notice, there's a bunch of different colors, and then again, the same thing that I've mentioned, gradients. Gradients are not easy, but you can see there's one there, there's another gradient there, yet more stuff here. Now, these are originally in the painting, but then you've got this there, and yeah, etc, etc, etc. So here's what it is. And then, so here was just experimenting with a different style. Again, different looks that you create in the rock, like dirty around the sword. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, like, I was very lackadaisical about this. So if you just pretend for a second that it doesn't exist. I mean, heck, actually, one thing I was debating is making it like these guys. So you see here, like, I actually got rid of it because swamp is indicated very clearly here. This is basic land. So I got rid of it altogether there. I mean, frankly, I could just do that, or come back to fill it in. The truth is, that's not hard. That's easy. It's just a matter of coming back and literally doing it. You can see with a brush this thin, you could literally just come back and fill it in. Just, if I'm gonna spend time on something, I'd rather it be the details of the card, and because that you can always fix later. Same thing like in these cases. Like the harder part was creating these gradients convincingly, working with the elements here. In fact, here I had some trouble there, so I just eliminated this element, but there it is. But yeah, some other just casual altars, working on the white border for the Tormod scripts. And actually, you can see here sort of how the progress works, where I haven't finished this one yet, trying to fix this white border, but again, challenging the gradient there, gradient here, etc. And yeah, for those of you that joined later, these are some of the lands I was working on. For a ghost who's going to have a seizure when he sees that, but you get the idea. Like I said, this is where the focus is. Same thing with the mountain. But yeah, that pretty much comes a full circle. The main focus here had been some of these other cards. So we just got a bunch of people joining. Hello everybody. So today the focus has been teaching, well, not teaching, but just going over sort of the process that I utilize for altars. And currently I'm working on a commission. I fix the focus. Currently working on a commission from our friend Christian Aguilar. So the commission is entailed playsets of Curse Catcher, playset of Mara Regery, and I think it's a whole. How many of these? Yeah, playset of Harbinger of the Tides, apparently. So the progress that I've been making has been mostly with the Curse Catchers, but these proved a little bit more challenging because of the details, particularly here around where like the sandbar begins and not really determining what I'm going to do with this bottom area. So those are just there. The ones that I have completed 100% are as follows. So number one, the Mara Regeries. So clearly, let's just take two. It's easier that way. Here we go. So let's play with the focus. There you go. So you'll notice that basically these are extensions, right? Just to extend them out rather than to do anything crazy, because that's what the commission asked for. And there's nothing too fancy, just there are a couple of stylistic choices that I think are relevant to point out. Actually, let me show you the one that highlights them more. So number one, you'll notice the addition of sort of a darker shade here. It's subtle, but it really accentuates the whole popping out effect that you got going. And then again, here we sort of created sort of the like coral kind of detail with some spotting technique. Got a little fleck of paint there. I'll clean it off later, but you get the idea. So those are the Mara Regers. The Harbinger of the Tides is the one that I actually painted this evening. So going back and forth, you can see, yeah, exactly. So first thing was again extension, the elements. The most challenging one was actually the tentacle there, and the water here. Thank you so much, G72690. But yeah, you can see here, basically for the bottom part, you know, you don't want, when you're working on these altars, you only have so much time, especially when they're commissioned. This is a commission, so these I try to make more nice. Some of the earlier ones, I mean, those are just for me, so I really couldn't care less if like it looks like pristine around the lettering or whatever. But since these are commissions, I do go. You're trying to make that effort. So then, if I only have so much time to work on this, I'm gonna work on the details like this, as opposed to, you know, like water or something else down here that's not as relevant. So what I did was created a gradient. So you can see it's like lighter, and then it's basically black as it goes down. And then focused my efforts. Let me help with the focus a little bit on like the suction cups there, or even on those suction cups, because as you can see, those did not exist. And yeah, and then you end up with this this card here. So what I'll be doing over the next couple of days is probably what do you call it? Finishing out these guys, since I already have like I think a good work process for them. Likewise with these should definitely come much more quickly. It's not as exciting to watch on stream these, because number one, I mean, it's pretty much the same kind of like kinds of colors, and it's probably frustrating to watch because these are all slightly different blues and greens. So it's like forever mixing, putting a little spot. Okay, mixing a slightly different shade, do a couple spots, mix a couple different shades, do a little spot. So, and it hardly looks like it's different, but I promise the payoff is worth it, because you can see that. And again, just compared to the original, I mean, that's a pretty seamless extension, and I promise you, it's not easy to make it look that seamless. But you get the idea. So that's the Regeries. And the Curse Catcher, again, this was, I haven't really determined how I'm going to stylize this bottom part, or how I want that extended. I probably want a branch coming out across here, something with some of the lighting here, making it come up. But even you can see here, these waves are sort of these swirls. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with them. I like this one, because in some of these I kept sort of the original idea, and then others like this one I added on to a little bit with additional swirls. So they're just variations on the theme. At least this way they look consistent enough, but then they're not 100% different. I mean, sorry, they look consistent enough, but they're not so different that, in a casual game, an opponent won't know sort of which one went where, since that sometimes becomes an issue. More with lands than anything else, but yeah. So, and the last thing I was showing earlier is this interpretation of the Mirage Brainstorm. You'll notice the main difference from the original is, well, first of all, it's on a 5x7 canvas. And second, I played around with the cheek structure such that it's a rounder face and kind of looks younger. It's an aesthetic choice on my part. Still needs some more details, so like pseudo Asian characters there, the moon-like thing here, etc., etc. But I'm a big fan of this art and sort of wanted to pay homage to it by reproducing it myself on this canvas. Now, as I was saying earlier, all my work is done with acrylic paints, liquid text you can see there. And they work really well. Brushes go anywhere from like what size is this? Like a 6 to this is a 20/0, so big differences as you can see here. And each serves different purposes. And next time I paint another one, it'll be obvious. So thanks everybody for joining for the stream. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, please follow. We make all kinds of content. We show vintage legacy matches. I play every format except Commander and Pauper, pretty much. And we usually just here at home. We stream tournaments as well. We haven't been doing that as much of that recently. A lot of us have daytime obligations. I'm a physician and a university professor, so I don't always have so much time. But we have a good network of partners that help us stream events and other things to the same channel. So if you follow us, you'll see that. We're also on YouTube, same name, Mirrored Tech, and there we have most of our archived footage. But this is something that I do a lot of anyway, these alters for fun, and so this way everybody can watch the process if you're interested. So thanks again, and we'll see you with the next stream, which will hopefully come Thursday night for Modern, and then hopefully another Saturday stream for Modern, and hopefully we'll have casual Legacy plus minus Vintage out either Wednesday or Friday, probably Friday, but just keep tuned to social media. We're on every forum. #MirroredInTech. Twitter is probably the best. Thank you, everybody. Take care.